I'm Dr. Ray Su, BJJ Black Belt and purveyor of pain relief and functional movement. Today, we're going to discuss how dangerous is BJJ really, the science behind BJJ injuries. 9 out of 10 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners will get injured. That's not a scare stat. That's what the peer-reviewed research actually says. But here's what that same research also says. BJJ is one of the safest combat sports on the planet. So which is it? Today, we're breaking down 10 years of studies on BJJ injuries, 12 peer-reviewed papers over 5,000 athletes across 62 countries, and the results are going to change how you think about risk on the mat. Let's start with the headline numbers. The biggest study ever done on BJJ injuries. 881 practitioners across multiple countries published in 2025 found that 81% of athletes reported at least one injury in a single year. A 2019 survey of 1,287 practitioners found 59% were injured over just 6 months. And a Canadian study found over 90% of BJJ athletes had been injured at some point. Those numbers sound alarming, but here's what most people miss. Every study uses a completely different definition of the word injury. The strictest studies count only injuries that kept you off the mat for 2 full weeks or more. More inclusive ones count anything that needed medical attention or changed how you trained, including that sore knee from Saturday morning guard passing. The underlying reality is consistent. BJJ carries real risk, but the risk is manageable. And in a moment, I'll show you exactly how it compares to every other combat sport. But before we get into the comparisons, let's talk about rates, not percentages, because saying 90% of practitioners get hurt tells us almost nothing useful without knowing how much they train. The 2025 global study calculated a training injury rate of 5.5 injuries per 1,000 hours of training. That sounds high, but put it in context. Recreational runners sustain roughly 2 to 8 injuries per 1,000 hours of running. Road cyclists are around 5 per 1,000 hours. BJJ sits comfortably in that range. It's not an outlier. Competition is a different story. The same study found a competition rate of 56 injuries per 1,000 matches, but the average practitioner only competes around twice a year. So competition risk is intense but rare. Training risk is lower per hour, but it's where we spend most of our time. The distinction matters for how you think about prevention. Now, the comparisons. And this is where BJJ looks genuinely good. The 2014 Scoggins study, the first ever to examine BJJ competition injuries directly, found a competition injury rate of 9.2 per 1,000 match participations, substantially lower than taekwondo, judo, wrestling, and MMA. The 2021 Munich study of 1,140 athletes from 62 countries made this even clearer with one striking number. Only about 10% of BJJ injuries happen during competition. In wrestling, 90% of catastrophic injuries happen in competition. Boxing, 57%. Judo and karate, around 70%. The reason is structural, right? BJJ has a tap-out convention that stops submissions before they cause damage. It bans striking entirely, and many competitions restrict the most dangerous leg locks, techniques like heel hooks. These aren't accidents. They're features in BJJ that generally reduce competition injury risk. In BJJ, the mat, not the tournament, is where you get hurt. And that's exactly good news, or actually good news, because training is something you can control. Every study agrees on this. 70 to 79% of training injuries happen during rolling specifically, not drilling, not conditioning, rolling. The 2019 Petrosor study found that 90% of athletes' most severe injuries happened in the gym, not at a tournament. This concentration of risk is actually the most important finding in the entire literature because it tells us where to focus. If you want to reduce your injury risk, you don't need to quit BJJ or stop competition. You need to make your sparring culture safer. So this includes better ego management, more partner selection of who you roll with, a gym culture where tapping early is respected and not mocked. And these are the levers. The research supports them. We'll dig into the specific risk factors in episode 3, but the single thing most gyms could do today is change how they think about sparring intensity, rolling intensity. So the question is BJJ dangerous? Compared to other combat sports, it's one of the safer options. Compared to sitting on your couch, yes, you will almost certainly get hurt at some point. But the risk is concentrated, predictable, and largely preventable. That's actually a very good position to be in. Here are the key takeaways. In BJJ, the annual injury rate is about 81%, but definitions vary of what injury is. 79% of injuries happen during rolling specifically, and only 10% of injuries happen in competition versus 57 to 90% in other combat sports. BJJ is safer than MMA, wrestling, boxing, and judo in competition settings. In episode 2, we go deep on what actually gets injured and exactly why the knee, the elbow, the shoulder, and the stuff nobody talks about. All citations are linked in the description below. Everything I cited today is peer-reviewed research. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. If you want to learn more about BJJ and injuries, check out my free 5-day e-course on how to stay more durable on the mat at the link below. We'll see you soon.